Welcome, Praise Team, to this next installment on 1-6 TV. In every single one of these 5 to 7 minute videos, my goal is to approach one of the 4 pillars of worship at Northside. And so in case you've forgotten or missed some of the previous videos, let me just quickly review those 4 pillars of worship. One is that we would have a spirit of celebration. The second one is that we would have an atmosphere of prayer. The third one is that there would be a sense of mission or calling. And the fourth one is that we would have moments of life transformation. And every Sunday, we make it our goal to try and hit all 4. That doesn't always happen, but it is our goal. And so what I like to do in these videos is just highlight one of those 4 pillars. And so in this installment, we're going to be looking at how we can, as a team, facilitate these moments of life transformation. The bottom line of what we do on a Sunday morning is that we are aiming toward life change, life transformation. Because if we're not changing, then what exactly are we doing as we gather together on a Sunday morning? So the goal is life change. And life change occurs when we as a team take seriously our role to be pastors. I don't know if you have thought of your role on the team as that of a pastor, but it's true. The word pastor finds its root to mean shepherd. And so in Psalm 23 verse 1, where David would write, "The Lord is my shepherd," he's basically just saying that God is the one who pastors him. In Zach Hicks' book called The Worship Pastor, he points out that we're all pastors on the worship team, and then he gives us 4 qualities of a pastor, 4 clarifying statements about what it means to be pastoral on the worship team. So no matter what part of the team you serve on, whether you're on the platform or you're behind the scenes, you serve in a pastoral role. And that role is ultimately aimed to facilitate life change within the church. So let me give you those 4 qualities very quickly. The first one is this. Every week, you are helping people answer the question, how do I approach God? How do I approach God? And you are helping to shape people's understanding of how to relate to God. Now, ultimately, we do this, of course, through Christ. We do this by the Spirit of God and by His power. And one of the best ways that we can shepherd people, one of the best ways that we can pastor people, is by pointing them to Jesus every time we serve. We do this in the way that we worship. So if we're on the platform, we are supposed to reflect a posture of passion and joy and spiritual depth. And if we're behind the scenes, then we pastor people by using the technology at our fingertips to point the attention to Christ and His message. So, ready or not, you're a pastor by helping people approach God. Here's the second one. Each and every week, you put words into people's mouths that become the language they will use to relate to God the other 6 days of the week. Another way to say this is you teach people how to pray. Pastors do that. They guide people and teach people how to pray. Prayer is the native language of worship. No matter the expression of worship, ultimately it boils down to how is this a prayer that we are giving to God? Because worship is not music. I think we all know that. Worship is not necessarily just art or technology or anything like that, but worship is prayer. And we use music and we use art and we use technology to communicate those prayers and to help people pray. Pastors do this. So, ready or not, you're a pastor by helping people pray. Here's the third one. Each and every week, you shape the beliefs of the people who gather. You shape their beliefs. One of the roles of those who serve on the praise team in leading worship is to be prophetic. To be prophetic. Now, that does not mean that you predict the future. That just means that you prophesy. You declare what is true. Pastors do this. I want you to consider your role on the team and how you teach people about who God is. I try to talk to our camera techs about this frequently to remind them how important their role is. Because what they do is, as simple as it might be to operate a camera, as simple as that is, it's vital to help communicate and teach who God is, because you are magnifying that message to the people who are in the worship center, and you are certainly magnifying that message and delivering that message to those who are streaming online. So it's really important. How we serve helps to prophesy, helps to teach people about who God is. This is what Dustin Smith would refer to as crafting the invisible. We take the invisible qualities of God and we craft them, we mold them, we manifest them into something tangible that people can know and see and experience for themselves. So that's what it means when we teach about who God is. We're crafting the invisible, and pastors do this. So ready or not, you're a pastor by teaching people about God. Here's the last one. Each and every week, you serve as an example and as a leader. You're a model. And John Maxwell would say this, that leadership is influence. Leadership is influence. So if you're not influencing anybody, you're not leading them. Those of us on the worship team help pastor people by charismatically drawing them in to expressions of worship. So whether we like it or not, whether we believe it or not, the truth is that people are taking their worship cues from us. Scary. Because if we look disinterested or bored or distracted, people will take their worship cues from that. But if we are passionate, not just look passionate, but if we are passionate and engaged, then the congregation will take note. They'll wake up. They'll pay attention as well. Pastors serve as models to follow. So ready or not, you are a pastor by giving the congregation an example to follow. Maybe you don't like being called a pastor. Maybe you grew up with a pastor who carried that title with maybe a little too much pride. I know someone who grew up and in their church, their pastor was Pastor Don. And you didn't call him Don. You didn't call him Donnie. You referred to him as Pastor Don. It had to be Pastor Don. Maybe you feel like the term pastor is reserved for people who have gone to seminary or have been ordained into ministry. But I think that a biblical approach is that all of us who are believers, all of us are to be pastors because we're all priests, you understand. In the book of Exodus, we find kind of what I believe is God's goal for his people, even into the New Testament. Now, it finds its fulfillment in the New Testament. But in Exodus chapter 19, verse 6, God says, "And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." I believe we see the fulfillment of this as Peter talks about it in 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9. He says, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light." I believe that everybody on this team is a priest, thus a pastor, a shepherd of God's people. And I want you to consider your role on the team and to map out some specific ways that you can truly shepherd God's people toward the heart of Christ. So ready or not, you're a pastor. I've provided a few questions below just to kind of get you thinking about this. As always on these videos, I would love to hear your thoughts. So please interact with the questions below. I will take some time to read those. I'm grateful for the way that you serve on this team, and thanks for watching 16TV.